Hi, Bianca. So nice to meet you. Thanks for joining the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast today.
Absolutely. And thanks for having me, Elizabeth.
I am excited to dive in and talk all kinds of things. Shopping, in particular, is one of my favorite topics. Especially now I have spring fever and I want to do shopping. Uh, I we start off all the shows though with pulling some words of inspiration, wisdom, whatever I felt like capturing in the Happy Healthy Caregiver jar. Would love to get your thoughts on this. This is gonna be good for you as a busy working woman. Behind every great woman, there is a tremendous pile of laundry.
Not behind this woman because my husband absolutely just takes care of everything in the home. And he literally does laundry like every 3 days. So I'm very, very lucky to have him. And I couldn't do this without him, to be honest. So, or
He's
without
also
my
your
mom.
business partner, right?
He is. He's my co-founder. Yes. So
You,
he's just as busy, but he finds the time.
well, and maybe he likes to do laundry. There is something about like starting and finishing something that can be very therapeutic.
That's true. He likes to put it in, but I'm the one who has to take it out.
That sounds very familiar with my husband and my son. They think you can just like live out of the dryer. But I try to explain, like, if you can get these things out and up, you can save yourself the ironing, which is, I won't buy anything that needs to be ironed. That sounds miserable.
He just pops it back in and
Oh,
throws it back on. And
oh, I know. That's why we love them. Well, this is awesome. Well, we met, I know because as a disclaimer, Carewell is one of my wonderful Happy Healthy Caregiver partners that make all the things that I do, the podcast and blogging and complimentary coaching and all of that possible. So I just want to say thank you, Bianca, for that and for being a partner and having a mutual passion for helping caregivers.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of the best things about starting this business is that we can support people like you, support so many caregivers in the community and really build and help build a community that is so needed. And so thank you for having me today. And thanks for the partnership.
Yes, we'll keep that one going. Well, tell us, I mean, you're more than just a business owner and a partner of Happy Healthy Caregiver. You have a whole caregiving story of your own. So let's start there. How did you wind up to have a role of being a caregiver?
Sure. I mean, like most of us, very unexpectedly, I had just moved home from college. And I was about to go to a different school, a coding school. And right then, my grandmother has surgery and it leaves her nearly immobile. And my grandmother lives with us. So it's me, my mom, my grandma, my little sister. So all women in the household, multi-generational, English and Spanish. And it was the first time that we really had to step up and help her. This is someone who raised us. She helped my mom, who was a single mom. And so it was quite a shock to us to have to, help her change diapers, to take her to the bathroom and do all of these things. And she's got a big personality. I mean, she's a really funny person, could be very hard-headed, which makes her even funnier. And, it was definitely, and it still is a very emotional time, that she just can't get around. She, is pretty much bedbound. And so of course, when we bring her home from the rehab center, I asked my mom, how can I help? We're in this together. And one of the things she's like, okay, go get us the supplies. I don't know where to get this stuff. And so of course I go to the stores and I'm like, okay, I have no idea. How do I do this? And, all of the competitors that the retail competitors have nothing. I go to a local store that's like a DME type store and I'm just in shock because it looks like this is like out of the 80s. I'm
What's
like,
a DME type store, first of all?
it's like, it's a durable medical equipment store. And if you
Ah,
ever go to one of these, they're like in random shopping centers all over the US and the prices are astronomical. The selection is terrible. The quality of products just is awful. And the good thing is that they do help you select items, because they're typically mom and pop shops. But I thought, this is a huge problem. We need supplies all the time. How has nobody solved this? Right. And I come from an entrepreneurial background. My dad's an entrepreneur. And I just thought, this is a problem that needs to be solved. I mean, it shouldn't be this hard, along with all of the challenges that comes financially, emotionally, medically with being a caregiver. Something as simple as products shouldn't be an issue, right? And so fast forward, I ended up meeting my husband on a first date, a blind date pretty much. And he told me about an adult diaper subscription service. that he was considering starting. And I was like, I love that idea. I would use that idea. I shared my experience, and we partnered and started the business together and the whole thing. And so he's been helping us provide care to my grandmother and building a business. And it's been really an incredible opportunity to be able to mix these two things that I love, business and being a caregiver and helping caregivers and building a community. We both feel incredibly lucky.
Yeah, well, I mean, so many things you shared there. It's so hard to watch people that you love like continue to decline, unlike when I raised my kids, they do more and more for themselves. And then watching your older loved ones, older adults do less and less for themselves is hard. And it sounds like you're still in the thick of it, frankly. And what
a worse. Yeah.
Yes.
So and then the end, is not pleasant either. And then you're left, my grandfather recently passed away, and we were caring for him. He lives about 45 minutes away from us, but we would send him packages and food. And so he recently passed away, but it leaves like this hole of like, oh my gosh, it's somebody that you talk to every day. That's, I see my mom, she lost her parent, that source of love, that infinite love, is no longer there. And then you see that as a child, one day that's going to be me. One day that's going to be my mom who needs my care and won't be there. And so I try to think of it as like, I'm so lucky. Not everybody makes it to be a caregiver. Their parents might pass away early. My husband's grandmother did in her 60s. Mm-hmm. One of my grandparents in their 60s as well, and my mom's in her 60s right now. So now that I look at it as an adult, I'm like, wow, we're lucky that my grandparents are in their 90s. Right. And they're still, telling us stories and making us laugh. And it really puts everything into perspective. When you're always looking at these generational challenges and the fact that, life isn't forever.
No.
So
do you find yourself sometimes in the role of, with my parents, I had a lot of comorbidities, and it really impacted me to start Happy Healthy Caregiver because I didn't want to just keep that cycle going. Do you find yourself being a self-care bully, I call it, for your mom? Like, hey, mom, don't do this
absolutely. to me. Absolutely. So my mom actually works here with us.
It
really is a family business. And all the time, because we care so much, like truly, we are a company that cares. We have a lot of family members that work here. And so every single order, my mom's checking to make sure it gets to the customer. If it doesn't, what went wrong so we can fix it. And so a lot of times I'm, up and I've been living with my mom during the pandemic. And I'm like, Mom, you got to go to sleep. You got to take care of yourself. You know what I mean? Like this is bad for you. If you can't cut yourself off, I'm going to have to fire you, like as a joke, of course, but I love her so much. I'm like, Mom, you have to take care of yourself. And so what we do is we've implemented routines. We walk every single day. Every single day we take a walk, and it's the best thing.
How does that work out? Like, you both are busy women, you're working, you're caregiving, like, I want to share
we have to disconnect.
Is it scheduled?
It's like 6:00
in the morning.
At night.
Okay.
So we're in Miami, so it's always warm or very hot. Perfect there. And so it's really easy. And so the team that she manages, they stop working at 6. And so she helps me actually get out of the house. And we've got dogs. And so we take them on a walk, but these walks for us are like an hour. Like we go so far, and then we talk the whole time, and we say, we cannot talk about work. Like we have a rule where it's like, nope, we totally shut off. We talk about TikTok, or we talk about social media, or we talk about whatever's happening. And we just try to enjoy the time with each other as well. Cause again, being a caregiver really puts life into perspective. And it just is a reminder to like not take any time for granted. And that's, the time. And my dad, lives pretty close to us. And so they're divorced, but we go visit him. And so he lives about 2 miles away from us. And so that's kind of like the routine. So both my parents in, try to visit my other grandma, and, make it family time when we can. And then sometimes I have to go back to work, unfortunately, but I try to make sure my mom does not, because I want to make sure to take care of her mind and that she gets good sleep. And
I know people listening are like, well, who's making dinner and who's watching grandma at home while you guys are walking?
Yeah. So my grandmother, she will just stay in her room. So it's pretty easy. I also have a sister who, and an uncle who drops by quite often. So he'll bring food many times. And then we have my grandmother on, it's basically like a delivery service called in Spanish cantina. And so they'll bring food every day at like 6 o'clock. And so we make sure that, she has food, and, she's a picky eater. She doesn't eat that much. So it's pretty easy.
How do you spell the service? Because I'll link to it in the show notes.
It's like a little Cuban, like hole in the wall right by where we live, but it's
for
like
Miami. Okay.
Cuban food. Yeah. It's like Cuban food, which she loves. So it's rice, it's beans, and it's like things that, she can eat that are sensitive for her stomach.
I love it.
And so that's kind of the time we're like, okay, she's fed. She eats really early, like 5:30 ish. We feed the dogs, and then right after we go on our walk. So it's kind of like just built into the routine. So my grandmother's pretty easy to take care of. Like I said, she's hilarious. She's a character. It is super sad now to see her, because a lot of people have passed away in her life. Her husband has just passed away, her brother. So she's dealing with, it's depressing. Getting older and living and being one of the last, living members of a family. And, so we try to spend some time when we get back home, and we try to keep her company. But yeah, it's a hard time. So I just try to keep a smile on her face.
Yes, that's important. When, where have you found support, before starting Carewell, where did you find support as a caregiver for your family?
Oh, yeah, that's hard.
Kind of a trick question. I feel like I ask people.
There's like not a lot of support, unfortunately. Like, there's other family members who we can go to who are like nurses or doctors that we ask questions to. My grandmother has, part of her insurance, she goes to a medical center, and they all speak Spanish because she speaks Spanish. And so that's been, that's one of the advice that I have is, especially if you're a Spanish speaker or you're not a native English speaker, try to find, providers that speak your language. It helps bring the person that you're caring for into the conversation, and helps them feel confident in the decision that they're making, when they speak the same language. And so, that's been a huge support. And they have, a transportation system that helps pick her up when my mom has a meeting or something, so that she can go to the doctor, go to like an event or something. And, I guess the support really comes from family. It really is a family, task. And so my mom has a brother who lives nearby, who spends time with her. That's one of the biggest things, is just like getting people to come and talk to her and see her and make her feel like she's, a person who's still alive. We connected her digitally. So she has a cell phone, she has access to Facebook. So that helps her connect with people who
grandma
in a while. Yeah. And she's on the phone constantly. I don't know what she's talking about at all, but she calls like 20 people a day, and I don't know what it is that they talk about, but they talk all day. And so at least she has, a sense of like community still, just, through her own family members. And then, our family drama that she loves. And so,
that's wonderful.
I really love, I think my grandma's like the funniest person. So
yes. Well, you and I are fortunate that we have like good family support systems, for sure. Let's talk about Carewell. Like so you talked about the date and how this idea started, and your frustration with buying, adult underwear and all that, which is relatable. I remember like a horror story I had with my mom is she had edema, and she, would retain water all the time. And I cannot tell you, Bianca, how many shoes I tried to buy for her. And I ended up getting like post-op shoes for her to wear. Like that's what she had to wear every day. Like, and she didn't have an operation. She just had such swollen feet. Like what a gift that would have been if I could like call up a company like Carewell and say, this is my situation, and not have to go through that. That was like brings up PTSD for me a little bit.
Actually, it's one of the really interesting parts of running this business is how much information we get through conversations with customers, right? And with caregivers. So it gives us an idea of what products need to be made. There's so many product ideas that need to be made. Like it frustrates me because when I look at like the baby market, I'm like, we have every invention ever for babies, right? And like, they don't even care. And then we have this massive demographic that's aging, that we're all going to become, older people one day, hopefully, if we're lucky. And we have no like great products. The products look like they're like for an assisted living facility, like for like a hospital system.
Yes,
There's
very
no sense of,
sterile.
it's so sterile, like there's no dignity in it. So one of our, future and part of the vision of the company is to really bring to market some of the inventions and some of the iterations on products that need to be there. Like instead of a post-op shoe, right? Can we just make better clothing? Right. That
Yes,
is,
we make really, really wide shoes for very, very swollen feet. Can we make
there's
that?
weird things like that, right?
Yes.
That impact a lot of people, right? It's
Mhm.
not just you, like you didn't have that problem alone. And similarly, like we get requests, you have, toothbrushes, that have a thicker handle because my mom, has arthritis and it hurts her to squeeze the handle. And so things like
Yeah.
that are really exciting. And right now we're not focused on that because they're, requires a lot of investment. However, that's, any, to the community who's watching this, any ideas you guys have, please bring them to us, right? So we can get them documented and we can start working with partners to bring those to life.
I have another one. My sister put pool noodles on mom's bariatric bed because she kept whacking her arm like in dreams and stuff. And so she cut the pool noodle, but could we make those cute versus like fluorescent
It's,
yellow with
it's like
duct
the
tape?
tennis balls at the bottom
Yeah.
of the wall. I'm like, oh no, that's so bad. I would never want to, and my
Yes.
grandmother was like the same way. She's like, I don't want to use that. That's for old
Yes.
people, and like
I
we imagine
know.
us using that,
No,
right?
I got style. You have style. We don't want that.
Exactly.
Um,
So that's a
At
good
some
one.
point, Bianca, I think too, like I know I've introduced y'all to people who start their own products. Like that's down the road too, right? Where you'll, you're right now you're working with main suppliers and people like
Yeah.
Depend and so forth, Tina and all of those. But eventually, some of these mom and pop kind of
Oh,
businesses.
absolutely. Absolutely.
I think that'll be exciting to. I love it. I call y'all an exquisite shop just for caregivers because who doesn't want to feel like that pretty woman moment where you're just like going in and being catered to. So that's wonderful. And how do you train your staff to like talk to caregivers?
So our customer service team has been like foundational to who we are as a business. My husband and I actually, when we started the company, we went to the Disney Institute and we got trained on how to scale quality service like they do, right? Which is
Mhm.
across the globe, across industries. Like it's insane what they've been able to do. And it feels so magical. And so we wanted to make sure that we bring those principles into running our customer care team at Carewell. So we've got an entire training program. They spend, each customer care agent, first of all, has to go through a hiring process. So we are super, super careful around who we bring, right? I think the acceptance rate is like 7%. So 7 out of every 100 actually even make it to
Wow.
become a care agent. And then we train you, right? And that training, it's over 100 hours of training full time.
Whoa.
And we go through empathy training, right? What's it like? Because some of these people haven't been caregivers, although most of them have been around it or have been. We can't scale to thousands of customer care people with just caregivers, right? There's not enough. And they're busy
They're
caring for their
busy.
families,
Mhm.
right? So we're like, okay, how do we instill the values of what it's like to be a caregiver? So they sit through videos, they go through one that talks about the challenges that a caregiver faces on a daily basis, right? We really put them in their shoes so they can understand what it's like and make sure that when they're providing that service, every touch point matters, right? This is a person who is emotional, they're overwhelmed, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the empathy training portion. There's a portion, of course, the biggest portion is around the products themselves. So we partner closely with the manufacturers and we let them know, or yeah, essentially, each category, each brand that we represent, we explain what are the different features, how to make the proper recommendations for each person's unique needs. And then finally, how to do that, written and all the communication to make sure that we're doing so respectfully, with dignity, and that we do it in a way that is inclusive. And so that's kind of the end result of the training. And then there's a QA process. So many of our phone calls and emails and social media posts and all that go through actual a program where we rate the calls, we rate the emails and all that. and you get graded, right? So that we maintain that quality that we that customers have come to know and love. And
Yeah,
so
it's like a
the
white
whole
glove
process,
level of service in a way. Like
like a
I know
concierge.
when I wrote the post about y'all featuring Carewell, I was like, let me call this support number and just, see what I can, and just do my due diligence, as a writer and product reviewer of y'all. I got the nicest person on the other end and was talking to him about all kinds of stuff. So, and I made up some scenario. It might have been the shoe one, frankly, I can't even remember, but to test it out a little bit. So it's clear that you've got a passion for believing in what you're doing. And then also I saw something, you didn't tell me this, it wasn't in your bio, but you recently got recognized as being Forbes 30 under 30 in retail and e-commerce. So we'll link to that in the show notes. But what a nice validation about what you're doing.
Yes, that's why I say we're very, very thankful that we can build a business. Again, I'm an entrepreneur since I was a kid. I mean, I've dreamt about doing this my entire life, but I never thought I'd be lucky enough to find a need that's really worthy like this, where like you can really make an impact in someone's life and then in millions of people's lives. I mean, so it makes me teary eyed because I'm just like, I'm so lucky. Like I'm not, right? Like being a caregiver is, you don't think that it's lucky, but it's given me a perspective on life is short. Take the time that matters with your family, appreciate the small things. And I don't think I would have ever had that had I not gone through that experience, right? And I think caregiving is also a really sad and taboo subject. And I always say like caregiving needs more light, more love, like more positivity, right?
Yeah,
because
joy.
I actually really enjoy spending a lot of time with my grandma. I keep saying she's the funniest person in the world. She's got so much sass and attitude, and it just cracks me up. And sometimes a lot of the things are very sad, and she could be very hard-headed, but it makes me laugh even more because I'm like, I get it. You're frustrated, And so one of the tips I always have is like, with my mom's family and even with my dad's family, you really have to create a plan when you're caregiving, because life's going to come at you and you want to be prepared. But instead of making it like this somber activity of like, oh, we have to plan, like that sounds scary.
Like
I wouldn't
plan
want
for the end, or just plan for the living part, or all
for
of
the
it?
living and the end. There's both. You got to plan for everything, right?
Yep.
Financially, you have to figure out who's going to take who to doctor's appointments. You've got to figure out who's going to pay for supplies, right? Funeral costs, all those different things need to be talked about.
Yeah, power of attorney. Yeah.
Power
Where
of
do you want to
attorney.
live? Is it, we don't promise that you can keep somebody in your house, the whole time. Things will happen that might be out of your control.
Exactly. Right. There's a lot of things like that people just don't want to do. So I try to say like, do it, go into, instead of, meeting at someone's house, go to a restaurant, do it over a drink, make it an opportunity to connect with your family and try to spin it in a positive way, because you'll have more fun doing it. It'll feel less scary. And then it becomes a thing. Right. And that's what I try to do with my mom. It's like, let's not make this a scary thing. Let's just talk about, okay, we need to get this done. Let's do one lunch, one day, right? To get one thing accomplished. And then, we can check it off the list. And so it's more of like a positive thing. So that's kind of my take on, I think, where caregiving needs to go and how we talk about it. And
yeah, because none of us are getting out of here alive. So it's going to happen. And it's funny you mentioned like tie it to something fun. I remember like I told my husband, I'm like, we need to update our wills, and I want I want this for my birthday present this year. And he's like, you're sick. And I'm like, no, it's peace of mind. Like it's going to give everybody peace of mind just knowing that we have this. And if we don't just do it and attach it to something like that, it may not happen.
And have a glass of champagne when you sign it.
There you go.
And there you go. You make it a positive experience. And then, no one wants to do them. I get it. Make it fun.
Make it fun. Yeah. Your mom was a single mom, and, one of the pillars of self-care that we don't talk about enough too, I think, is financial self-care. Being responsible with our money as far as saving and spending, investing and all of that. And, what are your thoughts on some of that stuff?
Oh, it's a touchy subject, right? I since I was a kid, I've always been a saver. I've been very cheap with my own money, because I always can see that my mom was a single mom. She, was a stay-at-home mom, also caring for me and my sister. And, it always occurred to me that like, I have to take care of my mom, eventually. And so, I encourage everybody to start saving as early as possible, as early as possible. And the second thing too, is that there is this thing called, long-term care insurance. And I hope everybody looks into it. And takes out a plan if possible on themselves, or if you're young enough, you can, because what it does is it helps cover the cost of long-term care when you're older. And so that is going to be, it's a gift that you can give to, your children, that peace of mind. And it's existed. Not many people know about it, but I really encourage people to look into it.
I think people think, and I know I thought this for a long time, that Medicare is going to pay for all long-term care, but Medicare does not pay for that. Medicaid, if you're, in dire straits financially and you need help there, they will do that. Medicare will pay for some things like rehab after a hospitalization for a length of time. But for most, if you don't have long-term care insurance or your own personal savings, like it's a very, it's a very scary spot to be in.
Absolutely. And that's the problem too, is just people just don't know. Right. Until it's too late. So I try to tell everybody that, like, save as much money as you can. If you have parents, try to get them, like, and many times they do, try to make sure that they're planning properly for the future, their own future, right? Mm-hmm. Where they're going to need extra care. And then funeral planning as well. My grandfather just passed away, like I said, and he had taken care of everything. And that was a huge, like, lift off my mom and her brothers and sisters to know that, they, through a really, terrible time, that there wasn't another stressor.
Yeah.
And so, talking about it, having, being prepared really helps in those really
normalizes it.
Times.
I love that. Are you ready for the lightning round, Bianca? I'm going to ask you a couple self-care prompts from my book. It's the Just For You Daily Self-Care Journal. So there are no wrong answers, by the way. So, okay. What object in your home brings you comfort?
I have a blanket from when I was a kid.
Ooh, true confession. What kind of state is that in? Do you have a travel version of the blanket?
No, I do not travel with it. Do not travel with it. Too afraid to lose it. It has one tiny little hole. But I've had it. It was my little sister's blanket that I must have loved as a kid because I took it. And I'm almost 30 years old and I still have it and sleep with it every night.
Well, I have a friend who I won't mention because I don't have permission, but has her blanket ripped. And so she literally has a travel part of that blanket. And she's a big time executive. Like, I love that. Okay. How about 2 of your healthy go-to snacks?
Acai bowls. I eat every morning almost.
What do you put in them? I got to know.
I have one right next to me that's from this morning. Blueberry, blackberry, almonds, acai, and a little tiny bit of almond butter, because otherwise it gets too sticky. But that's it. Super simple.
I love making, my daughter turned me on to making those. And yes, smoothie bowls. I love them. Okay. What kind of mental activities do you enjoy that keep your mind sharp?
So I have a software background. And so sometimes I still like to go in and look at the things that people haven't been able to like really solve in the company and try to solve them myself. Many times I don't get anywhere, but sometimes I do. And I could be like, guys, I got one, and those are the things that that like, if I had nothing to do all day, like I always tell my husband, like I would want to code all day and like
you're a geek out about that.
Around technology and all that. So,
well, I too have an IT background, but more on a functional side. Okay. Well, we already know this one. Let's ask this one. What positive habit could you incorporate when you stop at a red light or when a TV commercial comes on?
Taking a deep breath.
That's great.
Sometimes I'm like, I feel like I haven't breathed in like a second, or a few hours. Even right now, when you asked that, I was like, I haven't taken.
You can't say breathe without breathing.
Yeah.
Maybe we should just put that on our like visor or something. Yes, and I think that's the thing for me with the self-care and why I wrote this journal is because I think a lot of people think it needs to be some big production, but it is these little teeny things that you do in the nooks and crannies of your life that make your life, joyful and happy and healthy and sustainable, frankly.
Yeah.
Any other things that you would wish that we talked about that you want to share? We cannot wrap this conversation up without mentioning one more thing, or just something you want to say to caregivers. That works too.
No, the truth is, if you need help with anything, send us an email. We'll help you figure it out. Most people don't even know that, but like we'll respond to everything. And so send us an email. We will find an expert if it's something that, we don't have knowledge of internally. We have many, many connections in the community to experts, to other people who write resources just like you. And so just, send us an email, reach out to Elizabeth. She can come to us too. We're partners. And we'll try to do our best to get you the answer.
Yeah, we're not going to see you stuck. We want to make it, we can help people. That's what
We're in your
brings me joy.
shoes, right? Like we're just like you and we're getting through it. And you will too, right? And we're all here for each other. So
I love that. That's so wonderful. Thank you so much, Bianca, for that. And where do people find out more about you and more about Carewell?
On carewell.com. We're also, if you give us a call at 855-855-1666, we're available 24/7, English and Spanish, and on chat. So any way you want to reach us, we're always going to be there for you.
That's so good, because a lot of times that late night shopping is when all the magic happens. So,
and when you have time, right?
When you have time, exactly. Well, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Bianca. I wish you success, and I look forward to our continued partnership.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. It was great speaking.